Hello, hi, good afternoon, and a very warm welcome to this new session on British poetry. This class is for the course code ENM 6214, which is a part of Masters of English program, right? So, in this particular lecture, we'll be discussing British poetry. In the last lecture, we have started with the poetry of Dylan Thomas, a very famous poet belonging to the apocalyptic group of poets dealing with the themes of death, childhood, right, and abstract ideas. So myself, Shalini Chaudhary, I am a guest faculty in English here at Mata Tripura Sundari Open University, and I'm the course instructor for this particular course code on British Poetry Second, right? So let us now focus on the division of the entire course. This is something that we have discussed earlier as well. So the entire MA program is divided into 5 courses. The first one is Fundamental of Linguistics and ELT, followed by Shakespeare, which is something I'm also taking up. Then Literary Criticism and Theory, then British Poetry, part second, and Prose, part second. So these are the division of the courses. Now let us talk about the learning goals that we are having in association to this lecture on British Poetry 2. Right, so what are the objectives that we are having in relation to this particular lecture? We'll be focusing it over here. Right, so after studying the text in this, we'll be focusing on Do Not Go Gentle Into That Good Night, which is a poem by Dylan Thomas. Then we'll be moving towards the block 2, unit number 1 to 3, which deals with W.H. Auden. So in the last lecture, when we were discussing about the apocalyptic group of poets, right, to which Dylan Thomas belongs to, we have also discussed that how they were different from their predecessors. And who were the predecessors? Predecessors were the Max Ponde group. So I have told you that Max Ponde group includes Stephen Spender, Auden, Cecil Day Lewis, right? So these were the people who were involved in that particular group. And this word Max Ponde was given by a critic whose name was Roy Campbell, right? Let me write it over here for you. Roy Campbell. So he critic who used the term Max Ponde for the poets active during 1920s, right? So here, Roy Campbell, he is the critique who is coming up with this term, Max Ponde group, which he used in order to denote a group of poets who were writing, who were very much active during the period of 1920s. And they were talking about the political and social situations at that point of time, right? So they were talking about the political and the social reality. They were the major themes of their writings. Right, so Roy Campbell, the critic who coined the term. So at that point of time, we have discussed that uh, Dylan Thomas is belonging to apocalyptic group of poets, but when we are talking about Auden, so since he's a part of Max Ponde group, he's belonging to the Max Ponde group, the group that was active during the 1920s. So which means he's the predecessor of Dylan Thomas, right? So let us and we'll be understanding the major themes of morality, resistance, anxiety, and existential crisis. These are the major themes of Do Not Go Gentle Into That Good Night. It deals with the theme of mortality, resistance, anxiety, and existential crisis. Then we'll analyze how different poetic, so anxiety and existential crisis is also reflective in The Age of Anxiety, which we'll be dealing with, which is written by Auden, belonging to the Max Ponte group, active during 1920s. Now we'll be also talking about how different poetic forms such as villanelle and modernist verse. So villanelle is getting used by Dylan Thomas. Villanelle is a poetic form in which the poem consists of 19 lines, right? So the entire poem is composed of 19 lines. This is the format of villanelle, which is a poetic format. Modernist verse, it is usually written in free verse. So we'll discuss how these two are different. Then interpret the symbolism of light, darkness, inner journeys in relation to the human experience. We'll examine the impact of historical context. We'll talk about that how the events that have happened in the past, such as the World War II, were having a very profound impact on the writing of the poets such as W.H. Auden, because as I've already told you, he belongs to a group who was writing about the political and the social uh, situation of that particular point of time. So World War was definitely one of the most significant event that has happened during that period. So that is why his writings are concerned with both the world wars. Right. So identify various human response to death, aging, and spiritual emptiness. We'll analyze the psychological and philosophical dimension of modern poetry, because both Dylan and Auden, they are belonging to the modern age. So we'll try to understand the psychological as well as the philosophical dimension of modern poetry. Then we'll compare the individual struggle against death with the collective experience of modern anxiety. So individual struggle, the struggle of a person, a single person against death, which is reflective in Dylan Thomas poetry, with which we'll be comparing the collective experience of anxiety and fear in the writings of Auden. We'll evaluate the use of repetition, imagery, and tone in conveying emotional intensity. Then we'll understand the progression from external reality to internal consciousness in modernist literature. Develop critical insights into how literature reflects human resilience and existential certainty, right? So we'll also talk about that how literature is a tool which reflects the human resilience, the human resistance, and the existential uncertainty, the uncertainty about the existence of human life. So let us first discuss Do Not Go Gentle Into That Good Night, which is a poem written by Dylan Thomas. So do not go gentle into that good night. Now here the main word is good night. So good night here is not just the end of the day. It is symbolic of the end of the life, which simply means it is symbolic of death. So it is a powerful villanelle. What is a villanelle? It is a poetic form which comprises of 19 lines in which the speaker urges resistance against death. So, in this entire poem, the speaker is asking for resistance. The speaker is asking for a kind of power that he can assert over death. Right? So, he is basically asking uh, power, a kind of power which will help him in resisting the eventual fate of humankind, which is death, which is the end of life. So, he is asking a power for that. Okay, so the poem is addressed to the poet's dying father. So the poem is addressed in relation to the poet's dying father. So when he's asking for resistance, he's not asking for resistance for his own life. He's asking a sort of resistance for his father's life, because he's at the dying stage. He's on the deathbed. So he's basically asking God to give some resistance towards death. And it expresses an intense emotional plea not to accept death passively. So it is also reflective of an emotional plea. It is also reflective of basically a request where he's asking all human beings, all human um entities to not accept death in a passive form. They have to be very active. They should not accept it in a very passive manner. So there was another poem that we have discussed by Dylan Thomas, right? It was also dealing with the same theme, that we have to be very active and we should not consider death to be the end of life, but we should consider it as renewal and regeneration. So the speaker insists that old the poem was that death shall have no dominion, right? So we have discussed it in the last lecture. It was also dealing with a similar theme. So the speaker insists that old age should burn and rave at close of day, meaning that even in the face of death, one should fight vigorously to stay alive. So what is he saying? That if death is approaching, death is coming to you, you should not just passively give away to it. You should try to resist. You should try to have your chance at life. You should try to protect yourself. You should show some enthusiasm to live. You should fight vigorously to stay alive instead of passively accepting death. So, through a series of examples, such as the example of wise men, good men, wild men, and grave men, the poet shows that all kind of people, regardless of their life experiences, they resist death and regret its inevitability. So he's given an example of all kind of wise men, good men, wild men, all type of men, even the grave men, the men who are lying in their graves. They are resisting death because they want to live, they want to experience life, they want to be alive. So they are actually resisting death, and they are also criticizing the inevitability of death. They are criticizing the idea that human beings are mortal. They are criticizing the idea that human beings have to die, right? So no matter whether there is a wise man, whether there is a good man, whether there is a grave man, all of them have resisted death, all of them wanted to live, all of them are criticizing the idea of inevitability of death. Okay, so in the final stanza, the speaker directly addresses his father, because this poem is addressed to his dying father, asking him to cure or bless him with fire's emotion, but above all, not to surrender quietly to death. So he's directly addressing the poem to the father, and he's saying that curse or bless, either curse me or bless me with your emotions, but above all, you should not surrender to death. You should not give up your life in the hands of death. You should resist to live. The repeated lines reinforce the central message. One must not go gentle, but should rage against the dying of the light. Right? So one must not go gentle. One must not give away the life so easily. One must resist, show rage against the dying of the light. So the light that is getting dimmed, right? So light is symbolic of life. It is symbolic of something which is good, while darkness is symbolic of death, right? So you should not let that light dim. That is what the poet is saying. Now, form and structure of the poem. The poem is written in a villanelle format. So I have told you, villanelle is a fixed poetic form. It is a fixed poetic form which consists of 19 lines. So the entire poem consists of 19 lines with two repeating refrains. So villanelle is a 19 lines poem. It has repeating refrains. What are refrains? Repeating lines which are at the starting of each paragraph or the ending of each paragraph, which these are known as refrain, when there are repetitive lines at the start of the paragraph or at the end of the paragraph. So this poem makes use of two refrains and is having a strict rhyme scheme of ABA. Okay, so basically often used to express intense emotions through repetition. So the entire poem is divided into 5 tercets. What are tercets? 3 line stanzas. And what is the rhyming scheme of these 3 line stanzas? A, B, A. So the first line will rhyme with the third line. This is the rhyming scheme of these tercets. So there are total 5 tercets. 3 into 5 is 15. And then there is a concluding quatrain. Quatrain consists of 4 lines. So a paragraph of 4 lines is known as quatrains. So villanelle is a poetic form which makes use of 19 lines. And in that 19 lines, we have 5 3 lines paragraphs and 1 4-line paragraphs. This is what a villanelle. So 3 into 5 makes 15, and 1 quatrain is for 4 lines. 15 plus 4, 19 lines in total. Right? This is what villanelle is. It is a poetic form, which Dylan Thomas has used in this poem, that we should not go gentle into that good night. Now, the 2 refrains that we repeatedly use in the poem is, do not go gentle into that good night, rage, rage, rage against the dying of the light. Do not go gentle into that good night, rage, rage, rage against the dying of the light. So you should protest, you should resist against the dying of the light. What is dying of the light? Dying of the light is symbolic of death. So you should not let your light dim. You should resist. So the repetition of these 2 refrains, they create a musical and hypnotic effect. They show emotional intensity and a sense of urgency and insistence. Right. So I hope the form and structure of "Do Not Go Gentle Into That Good Night" is clear. Now we'll be discussing about the analysis of the poem. So there is theme of death, But we should not be passive in accepting death. Instead, we have to be resistant to, we should show our resistance towards death. So the central theme is the inevitability of death and the human desire to resist it. The poem does not present death as peaceful acceptance, but as something to be fought against. So this is the major theme, that you should not accept death in the face of it. You should fight for your life, right? You should fight. You should show resistance. This is the major theme of the entire poem. Then good night, it is a metaphor for death. Dying of the light, it is also symbolizing fading of life, right? So you are on the deathbed. So Thomas challenges the conventional idea that old age should accept death calmly. So he is actually challenging the conventional idea where we talk about that when we are in the old age, we should accept death calmly because we have lived our life. He's saying, no, you should resist. You should rage. You should show anger. And you should not calmly accept your death. Instead, he advocates defiance and passion. So, types of men, he is making use of a different types of men to have a symbolic representation. So, each stanza is introducing a different type of man. So, we have total of 6 stanzas, 5 tercets, and 1 quatrain. So, each stanza is having basically a different type of man. So, wise men know death is inevitable but resist because their words have little impact. So, wise men, they know that death is inevitable. They know that human beings are mortal, but they will still resist death because their words, the words that they have spoken in their life, had not have that much impact that they wanted to create. So they want to create greater impact with their words. That is why they want to live. Then good men regret that their good deeds were not powerful enough. So the good men are regretting that their deeds were not powerful enough to change the world. Then wild men lived life fully, but they realize too late its fleeting nature. So they have lived life fully. They have enjoyed their life, but they realize the fleeting nature of life. They realize the mortality of human nature at a very later point of time in life. Then we have a grave man near death, yet capable of intense emotion and clarity. So the grave men who are the people who are very near to the death, just like the father of the writer. So they are near death, yet capable of intense emotion and clarity. They are very much near to death, but they have intense emotion and clarity. So they want to live their life. So these categories suggest that all human beings, regardless of their age, their nature, their struggle, they all show resistance towards death. They all struggle towards death. Now, personal tone and emotional appeal. Uh, the poem becomes deeply personal because it is addressed to the poet's father. The speaker addresses fathers directly. The tone shifts from general reflection to emotional urgency. The plea that he's making to his father: "Curse bless me now with your fierce tears. I pray." This shows desperation, love, and fear of loss. Then imagery and symbolism: light versus night. Light represent light, vitality, consciousness. Night is reflective of death, darkness, oblivion. Burn and rave suggest energy, rebellion, passion. The imagery, burn and rage, it should be rage, right? So they represent energy, rebellion, passion. The imagery emphasize intensity rather than calm acceptance. Then we have repetition and rhythm because there is a refrain that is getting repeated. So there are two refrains. The repeated refrains, they reinforce poem's central argument that you have to be active, that you cannot accept death the way it comes. You have to resist in front of it. So create a chant like quality and reflect the persistence of human will. So the use of repetition and rhythm, it creates a chant like quality. It makes it feel like you are chanting something and reflects on the persistence of human will. The repetition mirrors the act of resistance itself, relentless and unyielding. So it is also reflective of the act of resistance. So the repetition of the lines is also reflective of human resistance, which is unyielding. Now, if we talk about the themes and conclusion of the poem, the major themes that get reflected in Do Not Go Gentle into That Good Night is resistance against death, value of life and vitality, regret and unfulfilled potentials, the universality of human struggle against death, love and filial attachment, because it is addressed to the father and he is asking the power to hold on to life so that he can have more time with the father. So there is love as well as filial attachment. Then conclusion of the poem, Do Not Go Gentle into That Good Night, is both a universal meditation. It is both a universal meditation because death is something with which everyone have to struggle with. It is not something only one person is facing. So on death and a deeply personal appeal, but it is also having a personal appeal because it is addressed to the poet's father. Through its strict form, vivid imagery, and emotional intensity, Dylan Thomas transforms a private grief. So he's transforming his own personal grief into universal call, into a general call to resist the mortality of human beings. The poem ultimately celebrates human spirit of refusal, of unyielding, to surrender even in the face of inevitable death. We know that death is inevitable, but still our uh, spirits are so high. We have that unyielding capability because of which we are not surrendering to it. We are fighting against it. Then we have unit number 6, dealing with Auden. Introduction, theme, style, and characteristics of the writer. So W.S. Auden, belonging to the Max Pontic group, which was writing in the 1920s, he was born in 1907 and he died in 1973. He is one of the most significant poets. He is one of the most greatest poet of the 20th century, known for the intellectual depth, his versatility of themes, his engagement with the social and political issues. So when I told you about the Max Ponde group, I have told you that these writers were writing about the social as well as political issues. So Auden was born in England. Auden later moved to United States and became a central figure in both British and American literary tradition. So he was born in England, but he later migrated to United States, which made him a central figure both in the British as well as American literary traditions. So his poetry reflect anxieties and transformation of the modern age. So the writings that he is writing, the poems he is writing, it is reflective of the anxieties, the fears, the changes that were coming in the modern world because of the destruction of war, particularly during the interwar period and the aftermath of World War II. He was influenced by the thinkers like Sigmund Freud, Karl Marx, right? So these were the influences on the writings of Auden. Auden explored the psychological and socio-political dimension of human life. So he was exploring, just a minute. So Auden was exploring not just the psychological and inner turmoil of the characters, but also the socio-political dimension of human life. What were the social and political condition of the society when he was writing? He was also depicting that, right? So it is also important that you should remember this. So if we talk about, so his work ranged from deeply personal lyrics to public political poetry, making him a versatile and influential modernist voice. Now, if we talk about the characteristic of Auden's poetry, it is intellectual as well as analytical. His poetry often reads like a thoughtful exploration of ideas rather than purely emotional expression. So his poetry is very much thoughtful exploration. Whenever you will read the poetry, you will have a lot of food of thought. You will have a lot of things to ponder upon, right? So it is not just emotional, but it is giving you a reason to think about. Then we have modernist yet accessible. While rooted in modernist concern, his language is relatively clear. He was writing during the modern period, but the language that he was using was very much clear and reader friendly. Moral engagement, he was talking about the ethical questions, human responsibility. Then he was making use of very much versatile and diverse subjective, which were ranging from politics to personal life to love to theology. He was using persona and voices. He often writes in different voices, adopting different perspective towards life. There is a blend of public and private. His work moves seamlessly between personal, emotional, and the public issues. right? So in the poetry that we have just discussed by Dylan Thomas, we can see that there also we can see a blend of personal emotion and universal applicability. Now, if you talk about the style in which Auden was writing, he was having technical versatility. So one of Auden's greatest strength is his mastery over a wide range of poetic forms, from personal to public to theology. So he was writing about a very varied and diverse range of subjects. So he employs traditional forms. So I have told you, though he was a modernist poet writing in the modern age, but he was using the traditional forms so that the readers can assess it, so that it makes it more reader friendly, it makes it more easy to grasp the idea. So he's making use of sonnets, 14 line poems, ballads are long narrative poems. Then he's also making use of modern free verse. He's making use of dramatic monologues. Dramatic monologues are long poems, which is basically there is only one person who's there, who's dictating the entire poem, and the other person might be there, but we do not get a feedback from that person. So there is only one person delivering the entire poem. That is what a dramatic monologue is. Dramatic monologue was very famous during the Victorian era, and Robert Browning is considered to be the greatest writer of dramatic monologues. So this versatility allows him to adapt form to subject matter effectively. So because of this versatility, where he was talking about the modernist themes, but he is using the traditional forms. So this allows him to adapt to multiple subjects. Then we have conversational tone. Auden's poetry often adopts a conversational and direct tone, making complex ideas accessible. So most of the time when he is speaking, he is using a conversational tone. He's using a tone which is conversational and direct in nature, making the complex ideas accessible to the people. He avoids excessive ornamentation and instead uses clear, precise language. So he's avoiding any sort of excess ornamentation. He's not exaggerating things. He's not using a lot of literary devices. He's trying to make it very clear, and he's making use of a precise language. Then use of irony and satire. Irony is a key feature that we get to see in the writings of Auden. He often uses wit and satire for critiquing the political system. He was critiquing the political system at the point of time when he was writing. He's also critiquing the social norms, the hypocrisy of the society, and human behavior. This gives his poetry both intellectual sharpness and emotional restraint. Then we have interdisciplinary influence. Auden integrates ideas from psychology, politics, philosophy, science. So he's integrating ideas from different fields. Influence of Karl Marx, Freud, they can be seen in the writings that he was writing in the earlier period of his life. Then musicality and rhythm. Despite his intellectual tone, Auden's poetry is highly musical. So, despite the intellectual tone that he is using in his poetry is still very, very musical. He experiments with rhythm, rhyme, sound patterns, often creating memorable and lyrical lines. So, he's experimenting with the rhythm, with the rhyme, and the sound patterns. And because of that, he's creating memorable and lyrical lines. Right? So, there is a sort of musicality and rhythm as well. Then, if you talk about the themes on which Auden was writing, I have told you first and major theme is political and social concern. Auden's early poetry is deeply rooted in political awareness. So the early poetry that Auden was writing was deeply rooted in the political awareness at the period when he was writing, especially the crisis of the 90s, 30s, such as the rise of fascism and economic instability. So in the 90s, 30, there was the rise of fascism. The totalitarian form of government was rising, because of which they were curbing of the individual rights, and there was economic instability because of the Great Depression of the 1930s. So poem like Spain 1937 and September 1, 1939, they reflect his concern with war, totalitarianism, and moral responsibility. He examines how individuals relate to higher political system and often critiques societal indifference. So he's examining that how individuals, they are relating to the political system, but they are often critiquing the societal indifferences. So the human condition and anxiety, Auden explored modern man's sense of alienation, because he was writing during a period of war and instability, economic depression, and totalitarianism was developing. So this was a period of anxiety and fear, which he is trying to depict with the themes of alienation, confusion, uh, existential crisis. He is influenced by psychoanalysis. I've already told you he has a great influence of Sigmund Freud, the psychoanalyst. He delves into the unconscious mind, fear, guilt, and inner conflict. And because of his influence of psychoanalysis, he is dealing with the themes of unconscious, the mind, fear, guilt, inner conflict. His poetry is reflecting the fragmented nature. So the poetry that he is writing is also reflective of the fragmented nature of the modern man, how modern men are fragmented, how they have no uh, coherence in them. So they are very fragmented in nature, they are broken. This is what he's trying to present. Now then, the another theme is of love and relationship. Love in Auden's poetry is complex and often marked by imperfections. So the love that he is depicting is not very perfect in nature. It is marked by imperfection. So the kind of love that he is depicting is marked by imperfections. He portrays love not as idealized emotion. So he's not portraying love to be an ideal emotion, but as something fraught with misunderstanding, dependency, and vulnerability. His famous poem, Funeral Blues. So he has written a very famous poem, Funeral Blues, which captures the depth of personal loss and grief. Then religion and spiritual quest. In the later years, Auden turned increasingly towards Christianity. He was influenced by thinkers like Soren Kierkegaard. So Soren Kierkegaard is an existentialism thinker. So his poetry begins to reflect themes of faith, redemption, sin, and divine love. He explores relationship between human suffering and spiritual meaning. Then there is the theme of time and mortality. Even Funeral Blues deals with the idea of time and mortality. Auden frequently meditates on time, transience, mortality, and death. He reflects on how time shapes human experience and how individuals confront their morality. So, when we were discussing about the writings of Dylan Thomas, we can see that both have the theme of death in common, but both are dealing with this theme in a different manner, right? So he reflects on how time shapes human experience and how individual confronts their mortality. His poem often balance the inevitability of death with the search of meaning in life. So he's trying to balance the idea of inevitability of life with the idea of search for a meaning in life. What is the meaning of life? Why we are living? This is what he's trying to balance. Then the poem by Auden is The Age of Anxiety. Section 1 is the prologue. Prologue is basically the introductory part where we get to understand the main idea of the poem. So the poem opens in a wartime setting. The setting is that of a wartime, especially during World War II, in a bar in New York. Right? So what is the setting? The setting is that of 1945, because the World War II started in 1945, right? So it is somewhere in the mid 20th century. In the bar of New York City, the atmosphere is one of unease and restlessness, because obviously there is a war going on. So atmosphere is that of chaos, unease, and restlessness. The modern world is depicted as spiritually empty. So when he's depicting the model world, he is depicting the post World War One world. He is portraying it as spiritually empty. There is no spirituality in human beings. It is completely fragmented. It is broken and it is completely uncertain, because humans are no longer understanding that what is their purpose in life. So if there is war, there is destruction, people are dying. So this shows that there is no certainty of life. So why are they living? This is the entire existential crisis that is developing in the mind of human beings. So human beings feel disconnected from society, from each other, and even from themselves. Auden introduces the central idea of the age of anxiety, where individuals struggle with inner fears, loneliness and lack of purpose. So the age of anxiety, what is the age of anxiety? The age of anxiety is a modern age where people are struggling with the meaning of life. They have no reason to live. They are struggling with the uncertainty of life. They are struggling with loneliness because there is no spirituality left in the humans. There is no human connect that is left. They feel very isolated and lonely. So the city becomes a symbol of modern civilization. So the city is becoming symbolic of a modern civilization, which is lacking spirituality, which is lacking a human connect, which is lacking a purpose, which is crowded, but yet each person is isolated. The entire city seems to be very crowded, but all of the people, they are living in isolation. They feel to be alone, right? So this is what he's trying to depict, that even after being crowded, the city is very isolated because there is no human connect, there is no purpose that people are having. So people gather physically but emotionally remain distinct. They are gathering physically, they are present there physically, but emotionally they are remaining distant from each other. They are not showing any emotions, they are not showing any human connect. So the prologue sets the tone for the entire poem by presenting a world where faith has weakened. So he's presenting a world where faith has completely weakened. The people are not having any faith in God or any supreme power because they have seen a war where people have died. There have been a lot of destruction. So they are now very uncertain about life. There is certainty for vanish. There is certainty of dying. Individuals feel lost in mechanized society. So they are feeling lost in the mechanized society because they are only focusing on the materialistic pleasure. They are not focusing on the emotional connect and the human connect. Now, if you talk about the analysis of this particular section, the prologue is reflecting Auden's concern with modern existential crisis. What is existential crisis? A situation where human starts to question their own existence. What is the purpose of being a human? What is the purpose of living this life? So, influenced by the psychological and philosophical thought. This section highlights the breakdown of traditional values. So the section is often reflective of the breaking down of the traditional values, where urban settings, thus the urban setting is symbolic of alienation. The war background intensify the anxiety, fear, and instability of life. The tone is reflective, critical, as well as sober. Auden suggests that modern individuals are searching for meaning but lack direction. So he's suggesting that the modern individual are search for the meaning of life, but they do not know the direction. They lack the direction in which they have to move in order to search for that meaning. So this aligns with existential ideas about isolation and identity crisis. They are not certain about their identity. They are not certain about their purpose in life. Now, section 2 is about the 7 ages. In the section, 4 main characters are getting introduced. Quant, he is a scientist. Malin, a medical officer. Rosetta, a departmental store buyer. Embil, a young sailor. So these are the 4 important characters who are getting introduced. These strangers meet in a bar. So I have told you that there is a setting of a bar in New York, and they begin a conversation. So, as they talk, they symbolically recount the 7 ages of human life, reminiscent of William Shakespeare's concept from As You Like It. So, here we get to see the symbolic representation of 7 ages of human life, how we are born, then we are in the infancy, then we grow up, we go to school. So these kind of 7 ages we are getting reminiscent of, which is reflective of William Shakespeare work As You Like It. So each character reflects on stages of life from childhood to the old age. So each character is talking about one of the stage of life, starting from childhood to the old age, revealing how human existence is marked by the growth in experience, delusionment, loss of the innocence. So if you have ever read Wordsworth, you must have seen this theme of loss of innocence, which he uh, aligns with the idea of adulthood. So as we grow up, we become estranged with the natural environment. We become distant from the natural world and God, and we lose our innocence. This is what is depicted in his work. So this is how he's also talking about in these stages. So their narrative are not linear. So the narrative, the conversation that they are having is not linear. It is not having a straight pace, but they are very psychological, showing how memory and identity are fragmented in the modern world, which is depicting that memory and identity are fragmented and broken in the modern world. Now, if we analyze this section, the section is central to understanding Audin's philosophical concern. Fragmented identity. Each character represent a different aspect of modern humanity. So the each character that we have discussed is depicting a different aspect of modern humanity. Their stories reveal that identity is not stable but shaped by memory, social roles, and personal experiences. So the stories that they are narrating, they are revealing that identity is not just stable, but it is shaped by memory, social roles, and the personal experiences. So then there is influence of tradition. The reference to William Shakespeare's Seven Ages of Men is significant. So here, this concept is taken from not from As You Like It, but the Seven Ages of Men. It is, I think, a sonnet by Shakespeare, right? Seven Ages of. Here you can see it's written over here. Seven Ages of Men. Okay, Seven Ages of Men, right? So the idea of this Seven Ages has been taken from a sonnet written by William Shakespeare, which is called Seven Ages of Men. Okay, the reference to William Shakespeare's Seven Ages of Men is very significant. While Shakespeare presents life as a structure progression, so they are having a reference to the writing of Shakespeare. But when Shakespeare was depicting life, he was depicting it in a natural progression. It was having a linear progression. But when Auden is representing life via these seven ages of men, it is disjoint, fragmented, uncertain, psychologically complex. Then we have search for meaning. The characters attempt to make sense of their lives through storytelling. However, their reflections often lead to confusion, regret, lack of fulfillment. Then there is social alienation. Though the characters are together in a bar, they remain emotionally isolated, right? So they are physically present there, but they do not have any emotional and emotional connect or human connect that they can feel. That is why they are feeling isolated. So their interaction highlights failure of communication. So failure of communication is one of the most important theme in the modernist writing, that you know how to communicate, but still you are failing to communicate because the other person is not able to understand your emotions. The loneliness of modern individuals. So because of the lack of communication, there is loneliness among the modern individuals. Now, what are the key themes in section 1 and 2? Modern anxiety and the existential crisis, alienation in the urban life. There is alienation in urban life, fragmentation of identity, loss of faith and certainty, search for meaning in a chaotic and post-war world. In the opening sections of The Age of Anxiety, Auden is establishing a powerful critique of modern civilization. So when the poem is opening up, he is establishing a critique of the modern world, that how people are fragmented, they have no purpose, they have no identity, and they are having no human connect. Through the prologue and the reference to the seven ages of Shakespeare, he is portraying a world where individuals are psychologically fragmented and spiritually restless. The characters attempt to reconstruct meaning from their experiences and memory, which is reflective of the broader human struggle to find identity and purpose in an uncertain age. Now, unit number 8, it deals with section 3 and 4 of The Age of Anxiety. So in the section second, we have discussed about the seven ages in reference to William Shakespeare, right, starting right from the childhood to the death. Now there are seven stages. So in this section, the four characters, the same character that were introduced earlier, Quant, Malin, Rosetta, and Embil, they are moving from reflecting on life. So they were reflecting on life through the different stages of life to imagining symbolic inner journey. Now they are not reflecting on life, they are imagining a symbolic inner journey. This journey is representing the psychological and spiritual development of human beings. So the inner journey is reflective of the psychological as well as the spiritual development of human beings. They describe a progression through 7 stages. So what are these 7 stages? Isolation, desire, temptation, confusion, suffering, insight. But insight is not proper enlightenment, it is partial awareness. Uncertainty, there is no resolution, which resemble a quest or pilgrimage. So, however, unlike traditional heroic journeys, this one is inward and uncertain. So, this journey is not the journey that were there in the traditional sense, because it is an inner journey, it is uncertain, it is something which cannot be seen because it is happening inside a person. So the journey takes place in a dream-like allegorical landscape. Because it is inward journey, so it is taking place in a dream-like allegorical landscape where each stage is representing emotional states, spiritual condition, psychological struggle. So as they move through these stages of isolation, desire, temptation, the character experience confusion, temptation, isolation, and a desire for meaning in life. Now, if we analyze the section 3, which is based on the 7 stages, it presents the journey of an allegorical exploration. It is an allegorical. What is an allegory? Allegory is basically a type of literary piece where we have uh, two type of meaning. One is the external meaning, and the other is the internal meaning. So here also the 7 stages, they have different meanings. They are actually the exploration of the human soul. So the 7 stages, they symbolize inward psychological quest rather than a physical or heroic one. Unlike classical epics, which move towards a clear destination or resolution, this journey remains uncertain, right? So, unlike the traditional epics, which have a certain ending, there is no resolution. It is completely uncertain and unresolved, reflecting the instability and ambiguity of the modern world. The absence of a definitive and end underscores the central idea of existential uncertainty that defines the age Auden portrays, right? So the absence of a defined end, definitive end, is symbolic of the age to which Auden was belonging. So at the same time, the section is deeply rooted in psychological exploration, influenced by modern thinkers such as Freud. So the Freud influence of the Freud can clearly be seen here because he's talking about inner journey. So he's talking about the unconscious. So the journey represents the inner workings of the human mind, the unconscious. It delves into desires, fears, internal conflicts, suggesting that the real struggle is not external but internal. It is suggestive that the real struggle that a human being is having is not with the external world but his inner and internal world. The character's movement through the stages mirrors the complexity of consciousness, where impulses, anxieties, and suppressed emotions shape human experiences. Now, another important aspect of this section is the lack of direction. There is no direction, there is no conclusion. Unlike traditional spiritual or religious journey, which are guided by faith or divine purpose, this journey is lacking any clear guidance or certainty or a proper ending. So finally, the section exemplifies modernist fragmentation, how the modern world is fragmented, it is broken. The narrative is disjoint. There is no linear progression. The narrative is disjoint. One story ends in mid, the other story starts in the mid. So basically, there is no progression of events. The narrative is disjointed, perspective shift, and the boundary between reality and imagination becomes blurred. This fragmentation reflects the breakdown of cohesive identity in the modern world. So now there is the section 4, which is the dirge. Dirge is actually dirge simply means death poem. It is a sort of lamentation on death. So the dirge marks a shift in tone. It is a lament for the modern world. So here, it is not the death of a human being. It is the death of a civilization. It is the death of the modern world because spiritually and emotionally the world had died. So it is not a physical end. It is the moral and spiritual end of the world. focusing on the emptiness and decay of contemporary society. So the characters collectively reflect on the loss of faith, collapse of moral values, mechanization of life. The section portrays modern civilization as spiritually dead. Human beings are shown as disconnected from nature, detached from tradition, unable to find meaning. So the dirge acts as a funeral song for a world that has lost its vitality and purpose. So the dirge is acting as a funeral song, which is lamenting the loss of vitality and purpose. Now, in section 4, we see that Auden is adopting a deeply elegiac tone. What is an elegy? It is basically a poem written to commemorate the death of a person. So it is elegiac in nature. It is lamenting the loss of a person that conveys a sense of mourning. So there is a loss, there is a mourning. The lament is not limited to individual loss, but extend to an entire civilization. So the lament is not just limited to individual loss, but it is extending to the entire civilization that appears spiritually exhausted and morally depleted. So at the same time, Audens offers a sharp critique of modern society. He highlights the adverse effect of industrialization, the decline of spirituality and faith, and an excessive dependence on rationality, materialism, uh, oh, technology. So while the modern world may seem efficient and technologically advanced, it is portrayed as emotionally sterile. So though the modern world might seem very progressive, but from inside it has become hollow because there is no spirituality, there is no faith, there is no connect. Human beings in this context are disconnected from deeper values of life because of their mechanical existence, because of their uh, love for mechanization and technology and the idea of privatization. Now, key themes which get reflected in section 3 and 4 are inner psychological journey, spiritual emptiness of the people in the modern world, collapse of the traditional values, the spirituality, the morality. Then there is alienation and delusionment because instead, uh, still we are having the way to communicate, but still there is a lack of connection because of which people feel alienated and alone. Search for meaning without a proper guidance. So, in conclusion, we can say that these two sections deepen his exploration of the modern society, their discrepancies, their flaws. So, the seven stages depict a fragmented inner quest, while the dirge mourns the spiritual decay of the modern world. Together, they highlight the central crisis of the modern age, which is based on the loss of certainty, loss of faith, loss of spirituality, and the loss of identity. Because people are not certain about their identity. They do not know who they are, they do not know what is the purpose of their life. Now, there are certain questions based on whatever we have discussed in the lecture so that you can understand how much you have grasped in the entire lecture. So, do not go gentle into that good night. This is the poem by Dylan Thomas. And the question from it is, the poem is an example of which poetic form? It is an example of a vanilla 19 lines poem. The repeated lines in the poem are called, it is called reference. Old age should burn and rave at close of day. It means that one should show defiance against death. Then the setting of the poem Age of Anxiety is that of New York bar during World War II. The prologue presents a world of anxiety. The poem reflects the impact of World War II. The seven ages are reflective of the stages of human life, which is referenced from the seven stages of men by William Shakespeare. Now, the poem stands as a powerful affirmation of human dignity in the face of death. Right? It is an affirmation of human dignity in the face of death. Okay, so through its strict villanelle form and insistent refrains, Dylan Thomas transformed personal grief. So he's transforming the personal grief. He's transforming this idea of personal grief into a universal depiction of the idea. So that death should not be passively accepted but actively resisted. The different categories of men, wise, good, wild, and grave, they collectively illustrate, regardless of the life lived, the instinct to a struggle against existence remain fundamental. Their emotional climax addressed to the poet's father intensifies the poem. blending personal love with the existential defiance. Now, if we talk about the conclusion of the 7 ages of anxiety, it shows that how we live in a modern world which is fragmented, which has lose its essence. There is no spirituality, there is no human connect, and we are completely living in a void. So this is what we have discussed in today's lecture. Thank you so much for joining in, and we'll be meeting again on next Saturday.